Sup YouTube, I'm AG64, coming from the dead with a 300 sub special! This time, I was thinking about my 12 older challenge runs. The runs that I did over 1 year of playing Mitopia non-stop. And so I thought to myself, what about the Tower of Dread in all 12 runs? So over the course of 2 weeks, I tried beating the Tower of Dread in all these challenge runs, except for one, which leads us to the disclaimers. I didn't Tower of Dread the 2 teammate runs at all, for 2 reasons. One is that I've got the hell that is solo run to do, and the other reason is that a do-only Tower of Dread, as I call it, has already been done beforehand by several people, with the first I found doing this is being YouTuber user Neil Tavares. Besides, I did solo, sorta, well, we'll get to that later. Another disclaimer is that I will also rank every challenge from easiest to hardest, as well as give a brief history of the runs and the shots from the battles, and say how far I got, even though I technically beat them all, while being forced to use hero tier gear and only plus 49 grow boosts on all me's in every stat, aside from ones where I can't, and also solo because solo. So be sure to hit like and subscribe, as well as share this video or channel to those you love. And with that being said, let's go! To start off the gauntlet, literally, we have, surprisingly, the no stat boost run, or as I refer to it, Boostless. This was actually the first of 2 runs I first tried, and it's weird. This is one of the hardest runs Mitopia can offer. Why is this the easiest one? There's also the no defense run in this collection, which was pretty much harder than this, but the Boostless run is theoretically way harder than the Defenseless run. Why? Well, apparently somebody got lucky. Next up, we have the fittingly named pacifistron, the other one I first tried, but this one is easier to explain. I didn't have many battles to worry about since the goal was to kill as little enemies as possible. So the kill count from this tower sits at a minimum of 14, or 12 if you have the luck of a god. So getting that first try with my team and strategy wasn't that hard, as I used pure single target offense to kill the 2 minion spawners before they could spawn more minions into the battle. Which is, by the way, the reason why I didn't use an extra ally. The other limit of this run comes with a lower amount of sprinkles, which matches the amount you'd have at 900 kills. Previously, I got the kill count to 1145, but after a conversation with Discord user Master of Mike, we figured that the actual kill count of the entire run, post-game included, is around 988, thanks to the addition of the roulette with amiibo support, as well as a neat skip he found. Using the menu stacking glitch, Master of Mike managed to skip both the Pharaoh 2 and the Red Frog boss fights. This cuts out the need to grind, and skipping 2 entire boss fights is certainly no joke. So well done to Master of Mike, and a special thanks to him for spreading his knowledge around. As for the limited amount of sprinkles, they don't affect us that much. I had a cleric, and my team was well equipped to take hits, so there's not much to talk about. So yeah, let's just move on. Next up, we've got the attack-only run. The run where I could only attack. Honestly, this one wasn't really special, but was a nice refreshment after the hell that I've gone through earlier. I didn't find it that hard, but it does bring out the fact that I'm incredibly paranoid, so I save spotted often. By the way, this is one of 2 runs that I like a backup save for using, so sadly this run and another one will never get a post-game video from me. So yeah, we'll talk about the other run later, and right now, let's move on. Next up, we've got the no defense buff run, or as I call it, Defenseless. Like Boostless, this was surprisingly easy to beat. Somehow I struggled more than I did in Boostless, as I mentioned previously, but overall this was pretty fine. This is the other run I like a backup save of, alongside the attack-only run. In this case, I forgot to make a backup save. Whoops. Now we have the fittingly named Friendless run. The rules of this one are extremely simple to understand. I start the Tower of Dread with all me's having no friendship levels with one another. So for most of the tower, I lacked any form of assists, not even show off. So naturally, I did what every good friend would do. abuse the living out of quarrels, that's what! The strategy was mostly to spam spicy dinner and heal up when necessary, accompanied by a stubborn tank for even more quarrels, which actually worked as intended, but the run leaves a huge flaw in my team that I couldn't really fix in any shape or form. Turns out assists are incredible skills, even more so than I first thought, notably Avenge and Charity, as well as Resurgence. Without assists, Mies can't revive on their own if an ally dies. Mies can't give each other snacks for healing. Mies can't deal the insane triple damage attack from Avenge when an ally dies. Mies can't help each other dodge attacks so that they won't die, and much more. So I did struggle a bit here, but not too much for it to be that hard. And since I have nothing else major to point out, let's move on. Hey you! Yeah, you! Do you like having allies with good AI? Allies that do what you want them to do? That don't make you mad all the time? You do? Great! Because now your entire team will be filled with idiotic flowers that have a terrible AI and literally always make you mad. Hooray! So yeah, you guys might be thinking, why would you make your entire team flowers? And to that I say, challenge run. The troll run. The rules here are actually very simple. Your entire team, minus the extra ally, need to have the same job across the board. So one job will be shared through your entire team. And thus I chose Flower. I thought Flower would be a good pick due to its mix of healing and offense. Even though it's only okay in terms of both roles, it's decent enough for it to be respectable. But the AI for Flower is garbage. I swear, Flower Power just now gives me straight karma now. It's really annoying. And thus I did struggle a bit here. You see, in order for the flowers to do something that's actually useful, basically, Hurricane, I needed to fight against at least 2 or 3 living monsters. Otherwise, they'll just use the weak Bluster, and I only rarely saw them healing. And aside from that, Flower Power! I also messed around with my team's stats, specifically their speed stats. I did that so that the team won't speed tie each other all the time, since that would just be infuriating to deal with. So I changed the speed stats of the flowers to make a specific turn order. This way, it was much easier for me to think of strategy and wisely choose moves. And yeah, that's all I have to say about this run. Let's move on. Now for more of the older runs, as here we've got the Recoverless run, the run where I can't heal. Since I didn't ban the safe spot nor snacks, I could constantly try to keep all my allies at max health. I couldn't let anyone die without an enthrall from me, or my allies would spam revives like no tomorrow, which are obviously banned. This was tricky, but I managed. I always got to the top of the tower only to either die or have an ally use a healing move, but eventually I beat it. Fun fact about the Recoverless run, I thought of this run while I was doing the no safe spot run, which I called Safeless, and as such I then did the run without restoring HP, then without restoring MP. But only then I decided to combine the 2 runs and form the Recoverless run I used in the vid and the post game. Also, I grinded in those 2 runs without needing to, but this is also where some of my more popular clips like my overused Hyper Cat clip are from. Now let's just move on. You know, I like Tower of Flame. That move that is that strong. You know how I hated banning it in this run? The run that I'm talking about right now? Yeah, Attackless blows. This run was mostly hard due to my sheer paranoia, as I constantly safe spotted Mies in fear of them using banned moves. For this reason, it was pretty hard for me to keep up with the damage from the enemy. I honestly wished I played Imp there, since Charm would probably be invaluable in stopping someone from using an offensive move. Regardless, I still won after some attempts with no further complications, so we can move on. Do you know no utility? It's called Utilityless. Here I was paranoid and safe spotted often. Sounds familiar, right? Well, that's because it is. And that's the reason this run was hard. Oh yeah, I chose a team with almost no utility moves to speak of. Which sounds good on paper, but unfortunately such a team is horrifically bad and really frail. So I was struggling a bit. Literally all of my teammates were super frail and I was trying to change my job to see what sticks. Eventually I landed on Flower, but this was still a challenge considering the rest of my team's frailty in battle. The Dark King and Queen in particular gave me some big issues. I still won in the end, but it wasn't easy at all. Best of luck out there. Oh, now this is hard. This time with the previously mentioned Safeless run. A run so hard it forced me to use barriers just to beat it. Some of you probably already know that I always wanted to beat the Tower of Dread Safeless, and I certainly tried over the years, but never succeeded in doing so. Yeah, the safe spot is that important during the Tower of Dread. This run was, in fact, so hard for me that I delayed it until a certain point in my gauntlet. I couldn't do the Tower of Dread without the safe spot, considering how safe spot spammy I tend to be. The damage output of the later bosses, as well as the nightmare status effect from those exact same bosses, really annoyed me and completely destroyed me. Eventually, I did settle with barriers, which made the run way easier and not that hard. The reason I still put Safeless at number 2 though, is because I needed barriers just to beat it. However, if I had, say, legendary gear, I would be able to beat it easily without barriers, whereas I wouldn't with Boostless or Defenseless, considering I don't have gear. I could take damage in theory, but not in reality. Nonetheless, I did beat the Tower of Dread. So now we will move on to the obviously hardest Tower of Dread run, and perhaps the hardest challenge in all of Mitopia by far. You are aware that I soloed Mitopia, right? You are aware that this is one of the runs I had to Tower of Dread, right? You are aware that this is pretty much impossible, right? Well, to be honest, the possibility of this Tower of Dread run really depends on your definition of solo. Let me explain. For this video, I did 3 solo related things. One of them was finally getting around to solo the Dark Sun by itself, which was the most stressful and anger-induced tower of my life. Then 2 variations of the Tower of Dread, one with an extra ally and one without. The one without the extra ally was obviously impossible. I had to use a lot of sprinkles while fighting the evil sage, but I needed all of them to fight the Dark Sun. So that one is impossible with a max floor count of 7. So I did get to the Dark Sun, I just couldn't beat it. But the extra ally that I got to help me in the other attempt was conveniently a princess. So I went to the Tower of Dread this way, and I actually beat the entire tower. You see, Princess was an immense utility. She could attack, restore my valuable MP, and drop the enemy's defense stat. All these things are huge! Meanwhile, I used Lenare's good old elf set from his winning attempt against the Dark Sun, but with a slight upgrade, or should I say, downgrade. I purposefully didn't max out my speed grub boosts. Rather, I gave myself plus 55 speed in order to fight the Dark Sun with 112 speed, knowing that the Dark Sun's medals only deal 1 damage to me per hit. Since, you see, the Dark Sun has 105 speed. Meanwhile, the medals it summons have 15 more speed than it, clocking in at 120 speed. This means that the Dark Sun's medals always outspeed it. So, I use that as an advantage, by making my speed stat mean the middle between 105 and 120. This way, I always outspend the Dark Sun, like always, but I myself always got outsped by the weak medals it summons. This way, if the Dark Sun leaves me with the Nightmare status effect after its turn, while any medals are around, they will always wake me up before my turn, in combination with the Princess's Blindfold as an extra ally, and the Dark Sun trying to Nightmare would usually result in the waste of a turn. And as such, surviving the first phase was much easier. And the second phase did not gain any changes at all. The downside is that you must clear all medals before the second phase starts, or they will kill you after the Bing Bang. So keep that in mind if you're trying to do that yourself. Other than this minor thing, the strategy is pretty simple, like exactly the same strategy that Lenare used. So yeah, we can just finish this section. Well, that's it!